My wife divorced me and went on vacation with her affair partner thinking she'd get my parents' trust fund. But instead, she got a lawsuit. Hello, I'm Aaron, a 30-year-old man, and I'm just going to try to write everything down here. I've known my pals my entire life because they claim I'm the trust fund baby. They always attempted to get close to me, assuming I would be sponsoring alcohol at parties and holding extravagant gatherings all over the world. But every time I proved to be nothing like that, they abandoned me. Yes, my parents do have a sizable trust fund for me, but I am aware of how hard they've worked to earn it. I know that money wasn't created overnight and that my father's business could be destroyed by a single error. Because of this, I put a lot of effort into building on what my father began every single day. I recently came very close to making a big mistake. I didn't date anyone in college except for Ashley, my wife, the love of my life, 28 years old. I'm not the kind of guy to casually date or hook up with women. My goal was to date in order to get married, but I ended up attracting the wrong kind of people when word got out about my parents' wealth. You know, having money makes you popular and makes others want to live off you. I did occasionally sponsor alcohol and lend money to some friends, but nothing extravagant, nothing that one would expect from a trust fund baby. I think it's okay to do things in moderation. In fact, it's crucial because you have to be a member of society. I made an effort to be liked by everyone, though I hardly ever trusted anyone I met. I met Ashley at my graduation celebration. I struck up a conversation with her informally, as she didn't seem to know me. We hit it off right away. After exchanging phone numbers, I took her to McDonald's for our first date. We had an incredible time. I fell in love with her, and she didn't seem to mind that our first date wasn't. Ashley was my first love. She wasn't dull and didn't seem to be making a concerted effort to win my approval. She was just being herself. She was also incredibly intelligent. I felt like I obtained an image that was beyond my budget while I was with her, and I felt normal. She didn't seem surprised at all when I took her to meet my parents after we had been dating for a month. She seemed to agree that I was wealthy and impartial. That gave me hope that she wasn't put off by my money. She probably wasn't surprised because that was part of her strategy from the beginning. But I didn't realize that at the time. Winning me over was a well-planned tactic. She was well aware of who I was and that I was not seeing anyone when we met. When she met my parents, she exuded elegance. I fell deeply in love with her because she was so charming. The first woman I ever took home was her. My parents were ecstatic about me. She never took any expensive presents from me during the year we dated. The only explanation for her refusal was that we weren't yet married. After a year, I asked her to marry me. She was my parents' ultimate sweetheart. Since she wanted to work to increase our wealth, my mother gave her a hug and expressed their happiness that I had found a wife who was so encouraging. Ashley earned a respectable salary working for an IT company. My parents threw a party for our second anniversary. They declared their intention to offer Ashley a present and suggested adding her name as a beneficiary in addition to mine. They introduced Rob the trustee and Ashley to everyone else. Rob worked as an accountant for the business that managed the investments and legalities of the money. He had a daughter and was married. His spouse practiced law at the same firm. My wife's name was listed as one of the beneficiaries, and everything was handled. Ashley had a great relationship with my parents and always tried her hardest to make them happy. As part of her career, she also traveled and worked a lot. Later on, I discovered that whenever my parents hosted a party, she would travel with her affair partner. She constantly wanted to go and looked beautiful. Numerous times I witnessed her conversing with Rob in a corner, blushing from the wine she was holding and laughing a bit too much. Even though I was naive and infatuated, I never once considered the possibility that she might be having an affair with Rob. But these two had been having an affair behind my back the entire time. In retrospect, Ashley surprised me. She was a true professional actress. The idea of ever suspecting her felt sacrilegious because of how beautifully she treated each of us. She was merely waiting, though. My parents died within 6 months of one another, about 7 years into our marriage. It was simply too hard to manage all the emotions and still keep the business operating, so I threw myself fully into my profession. Ashley began revealing her true self for the first time in years at that point. She remained aloof. After the funeral, I attempted to give her space, believing she might be coping with her grief in her own way. She didn't inquire about my well-being or mention anything about the death of my parents. I found that odd, but I also subconsciously chastised myself for not being able to express my feelings. It took me about 2 weeks before I made the decision to leave work early and speak with Ashley about it. On the way back, I purchased a bunch of pink roses. Since I had my own key, I opened the door and confronted Rob. I asked him if he had come to discuss the trust or something, since I was perplexed. Ashley emerged with 2 suitcases from behind him. That's when I realized Rob had 2 suitcases too. "Oh, dang," Ashley remarked, glancing at me. "I meant to do this quietly. I was going to leave you a note to inform you that I'm moving out, but I suppose we'll have to do it in person now. I'm leaving you, all right, yes. You heard correctly, and yes, after we get back from our trip to Italy, I'll be moving in with Rob. Your parents ensured that I would receive sufficient funds to cover it. We're divorcing." Before I could ask her to wait, they had already left. There was silence. After I heard the motor revving up, my wife of 8 years abruptly left me. Is the phrase "the world crashing down in front of you" familiar to you? Well, that sums up my feelings the best. I didn't leave the house for 2 days. I kept the blinds closed. Cup noodles and chilled meals were my only sources of sustenance. I was afraid of the silence, so I never switched off the television. I had no desire to take a bath. Someone rang the doorbell on the third day. I assumed they would eventually go if I didn't answer the door, but that didn't happen. However, it was pressed the bell longer and harder each time it rang. The ringing continued for several minutes. After that, someone was now hammering on the door. "I know you're in there. Open up right now," a woman's voice said. "I won't go until I have a little conversation with you." I assumed it was Ashley, but then I recalled that she and Rob were on vacation in Italy. I felt a new surge of melancholy at the concept. I dragged myself out of bed and began opening the door because the banging and knocking wouldn't stop. A woman with red hair, wearing a two-piece suit, was waiting for me when I opened the door. She looked like she would eat my head off. "Your wife fled with my husband," she remarked. "It won't assist anyone to sit here and be a wimp." As soon as I didn't answer, she opened the door, met my eyes, and said, "You stink." "Okay, Mom," I said before I went to the restroom. I heard her yell back, and I laughed in spite of myself. After my bath, I felt somewhat human again, and the living room looked immaculate. When I got back, the kitchen was no exception. Rob's wife, she explained that she had been trying to contact me at my workplace for the past 2 days, but was unable to do so, so she ultimately made the decision to come to my house. She was serious. What she was telling me was unbelievable. Sandra claimed that, similar to me, she was unaware that Rob was unfaithful to her. Only 2 days ago, when he left the house and promised to send his assistant to get the rest of his belongings, her world was broken, just like mine. But she didn't mope about it. She began to dig. She started by looking through Rob's laptop. There, he kept his work belongings, but he was also hooked on Facebook. She quickly combed through his conversations to discover who he was having an affair with. She swooped in like a hawk. Once she was certain. It started small enough to go unnoticed, but ultimately he had grown confident and reckless. Sandra was prepared to destroy them because she had all the evidence. Sandra said, "I have a little daughter. While I was still unsure, I'll get every last dime out of Rob, and I'll completely destroy Ashley. What you believe doesn't matter to me. I only wanted to let you know. If you do not wish to participate, you are under no obligation to do so." She exuded confidence and determination, and I knew from the way she spoke that I could trust her. I was on board. Then we exchanged handshakes. We were working on a scheme that would cost my ex-wife a lot of money. While she was on vacation in Italy, Rob and Ashley had returned from their 10-day vacation in Italy. Sandra and I wanted to see how they would react when the penny dropped, so we waited for their call. It's been another few weeks. I guess it's hard to grasp the reality of it all when life keeps spinning so fast. My world has shifted completely. I'm still sorting through it in bits and pieces, but I'll try my best to explain. After everything that had happened with Ashley and Rob, the emotions have been all over the place. It's surreal, the kind of pain you don't expect from people you once loved and trusted. I don't even recognize myself sometimes. There are days when I still wake up with the urge to call Ashley, but I stop myself. It wasn't just her, was it? It was Rob, too. Rob, who had been my friend, the one who'd stood beside me at my wedding, laughed with me at my parents' parties, and talked business with me like we were partners. I feel like I'm still grieving not just the betrayal, but the loss of a life I thought was mine. The dreams I had for the future have been replaced with a heavy silence and a sense of disbelief. But life moves on, doesn't it? Sandra has been incredible through all of this. At first I thought maybe she was just someone with a good sense of vengeance, but it turns out she's more than that. She's one of those rare people who, when they see an injustice, can't sit back. She's been organizing everything: the lawsuit against Ashley, the evidence against Rob, the custody battle with him, and making sure that I don't get lost in the legal maze. But more than that, she's been there as a friend. She checks on me, she keeps me grounded. And Emily, the little girl who had her life turned upside down by these selfish adults, now looks at me like I'm her protector, and that weighs on me. Not in a burdensome way, but in a way that makes me want to be the best version of myself. I won't lie and say that I'm the best dad figure right now, but I try. Every time Emily calls me Uncle Aaron with her big eyes and smile, I'm reminded of why I'm doing this. Rob, on the other hand, has been a nightmare. He hasn't taken his firing from the company well. Not only did he lose his job, but his reputation has been completely destroyed. Word got out that he'd been misappropriating funds, and the customers started pulling away. The last I heard, he's been trying to find work, but no one wants to touch him. No one trusts him anymore. As much as I don't want to feel bad for him, there's this lingering thought that maybe he's just too far gone. Maybe all he ever wanted was to destroy what my family had built. And now that he's got nothing, it feels like there's no way back for him. But that's not my problem anymore, is it? I keep reminding myself of that. Ashley's calls have been coming in more frequently these days. She's desperate now, trying to regain some control over the situation, trying to guilt trip me into making things right again. But I see through it now. Last time she called, she was crying, telling me how much she missed me and how everything had fallen apart without me. It was manipulative, I could tell. I hung up on her. I can't keep letting her back into my life just because she's wearing a mask of remorse. I guess what really hurt the most is that Ashley wasn't sorry for what she did, but for getting caught. She didn't apologize for betraying me or for using me and my family's wealth as a stepping stone for her own ambitions. She was apologizing for losing her security net, not for breaking my heart. Sandra was the one who said something to me that finally put it all into perspective. She's not grieving what she lost. Those words have been echoing in my mind ever since. Ashley doesn't want me back. She wants the life she thought she was entitled to. And I'm not going to let her manipulate me anymore. But that doesn't mean it's easy. It's not like I wake up and feel indifferent. There's a part of me that misses her. The Ashley I thought she was kind, loving, loyal. I can't help but wonder how it all went wrong. Was I too blind to see the cracks? Did she start planning the affair before I even knew what love really was? I ask myself these questions at night when the house is quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts. One thing I'm certain of, though, I won't be the one to let my future be defined by them. I've been diving deeper into work lately, trying to take my mind off everything. It's been somewhat helpful, but there's this underlying ache I can't ignore. It's like a bruise that hasn't fully healed yet. I keep telling myself that things will get better. Sandra's been pushing me to start thinking about what comes next. She keeps reminding me that I need to take care of myself, not just pick up the pieces of my old life, but create a new one. And I'm starting to see that she's right. I can't keep hiding from the world. I need to step forward even if it feels overwhelming at times. I've also been thinking about the trust fund, the whole reason Ashley was with me in the first place. She was after that, wasn't she? I can't help but wonder if that was her ultimate goal all along, to gain access to the wealth that my parents had built. I haven't touched any of the money in the trust fund, and I don't know if I will. At this point, it's less about the money and more about reclaiming my life. I don't want to be tied to it. Not if it means having to look over my shoulder, wondering if there's someone out there who's going to use me for their own gain. I've learned so much about myself, and as much as it's been painful, I think I'm finally starting to heal. That's not to say it's all smooth sailing. There are days when I feel like I'm suffocating under the weight of everything, but I'm trying. I'm pushing forward. And with Sandra by my side, not just as a business partner, but as someone who's become a real friend, I know I'm not doing this alone. The next chapter of my life is still unfolding. I don't know what it will look like yet, but I'm learning to trust the process. And for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to feel hopeful again. I'll update you all again soon. Thanks again for all your support.